Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon on what I think is probably one of the most misunderstood yet most opportunity-based fundraising, and that's plan giving. In my travels and working with nonprofits of all shapes and sizes over the last 15 years, my favorite question really is to ask people, how are you doing in plan giving? What are you doing? Tell me about your program. Most people are not satisfied. It's kind of like asking somebody if they play golf. People always make an excuse. They never say, yes, I play golf and I'm doing really well. And it seems to be the same thing with plan giving. It's either, yeah, we're doing some things, or no, I'm not really sure how to go about doing it. It seems like it's a big drain on resources, and we're all under so much pressure to bring cash in the door now. That's probably the most common response that I get. Well, in the short time we're spending together today, I'm going to share a little bit about what I've learned so far in my journey working with hundreds of charities, helping them develop plan giving programs, and to show you, no matter where you are in your program, whether you have no plan giving, whether you kind of fits and starts, or whether you have an existing program, want to take that to the next level, my hope and goal is to give you some real tangible, solid ideas that you can walk away with today. So specifically, we're going to talk about the opportunity, the untapped opportunity for many organizations of plan giving. I'm going to show you a 7-step process for an effective and sustaining, very important word, sustaining plan giving program. And we'll throw in some tips on how to have the plan giving conversation. We can prepare, we can have a plan, we can market, but nothing happens until we pick up the phone and actually start talking to donors. So I'm going to give you some quick tips on that as well. Very quickly about me, when I work with clients, I bring 3 perspectives to this business. I make my living helping people develop plan giving programs. I serve as a part-time plan giving and major gift officer for, at the moment, a wonderful organization called Salesian Missions out of New Rochelle, New York. So I get a lot of ideas and a lot of experience working with the donors. I do a lot of cold calling very long-term loyal donors to the organization, and it's really enabled me to test what I teach over and over again on a continual basis. And then lastly, my wife Lorraine and I are pretty philanthropic. We don't have children, so we have a donor advised fund, which I'll talk a little bit about the opportunities there in plan giving. We have a number of charities in our estate plan. So I'll talk about, I share a little bit about my experience as a donor working with fundraisers and charities, and I hope that provides a well-rounded perspective for you. So what is plan giving? It's a great quote from a friend of mine, Wayne Olson, who's a plan giving consultant down in Alabama. And Wayne wrote in one of his books, plan giving is the only way your donors can support your organization in a way that brings them satisfaction, yet has no impact on their lifestyle other than to improve it. Could not have said it better. If the donor truly has donor intent, right, we always need to establish that first. If there is an interest, we can always show them ways that they can support us more, support us in other ways that cost them nothing now, that don't affect their lifestyle now. So why? I'd love to start with the why. Why plan giving? Well, it's a way for your donors to do more, and I like to say that as a plan giving donor. My wife and I are modest means people. Our gifts are to all these charities, our outright gifts are pretty modest. And we have a couple that we give a little bit more, but we're not writing $50,000, $100,000 checks. Yet, at the same time, we want to do more. We want to have a bigger impact, and plan giving has enabled us to do that. One of my alma maters is St. Joseph's University, a Jesuit school in Philadelphia, and I really wanted to do something in a bigger way. And I always thought about, boy, wouldn't it be really exciting to be able to establish an endowed scholarship? My sister who passed is an alum as well, and I wanted to do something in her honor, her memory. And so Plan Gift is enabling us to do that. We are making the university a beneficiary in one of my IRAs. Upon my death and my wife Lorraine's death, we'll be able to establish an endowed scholarship. Never would have been able to do that, or we're certainly not comfortable financially doing that while we're alive and by writing checks. So my point is, I think we're doing people a disservice. I think we're doing our donors a disservice if we are not offering them other options. Donors want options, especially that 10% of donor that you keep going back to for the next campaign, for the next project. We know they get donor fatigued, and wouldn't it be nice to say, hey, you know what, you've been doing so much, and I don't want to minimize all that you've been doing for us, At the same time, we're looking to continue to grow and build sustainability. How would you feel about a conversation about gifts that cost you nothing now? Of course, we're talking about playing gifts. I hear a lot of, like I said, a lot of people say, well, it's cash. We need cash in the door now. We're building buildings. We need to keep the lights on. Yes, that's important. At the same time, a lot of the research shows that if properly stewarded, someone who makes a playing gift to our organization will many times be open to increasing their commitment. So back to my example at St. Joseph's University, that initial playing gift commitment was really 10% out of my IRA. Actually, it's an older IRA that I no longer contribute to. So it started as a 10% beneficiary to the university, and then they did such a good job of stewarding my wife and I. By the way, very important point that you always involve a spouse. You'd be surprised at how many times organizations ignore my wife. And she's more likely to live longer than I am, even though we're the same age. But it started as a small commitment, and then as we became more comfortable financially, as they did a great job of keeping us connected to the mission, we did, in fact, increase that commitment. So it's a really important point to keep in mind, to talk to your board and any naysayers about playing giving is, playing gifts do not compete with outright gifts, major gifts. They complement them. We are invested at St. Joe's, so our outright giving has increased as well because we feel a part of something, and we're investing for the future and now. And then again, that first playing gift does not have to be the last. It's a really important point to not only stay in touch and steward our donors, but to cultivate them for additional playing gift commitments, just like we would do with an annual fund or annual gift or a major gift. And of course, there's no better way that I know of to build sustainability, to build our endowments, than with playing gifts. So the 7-step process is, number one, know the facts and demystify and get rid of all the fake news, as they say now in the media. Number two, know your role. You don't have to be a tax expert. And number three, know the why. Always know your why, the donor's why, the organization's why. Know the how. We're going to talk very little about the how. The Legacy Society, which is a great way to bring playing giving to your people. Making the call, picking up that phone, and then how to keep donors engaged and increasing their commitment. If you look at the Giving USA research that comes out every year, pretty consistent results. What excites me is when you look at these different sectors of giving, which one has the most or the highest increase? It's giving by bequest, right? So you have charitable, estimated USA charitable giving is about 7% increase, with giving by individuals just about 5%. 3 times that is giving by bequest. So it's here to stay. Everyone has heard about the generational, the transfer of wealth. We all know about that. The neat thing, the takeaway, the real thing with that is, right now, if you think of the baby boomer, percentage-wise, they're the ones with the most amount of money. And they're the ones that we really need to focus on for playing giving. Certainly the World War II generation, if you have older donors, my suggestion is that you should be reaching out to them now to see if they have already done something. You'd be surprised at how many times I'll pick up the phone and call an older donor, and they'll say, yeah, I've included you guys in my plans, but nobody ever asked, right? We're not asking. There was a great study done by the DECIMA, T-E-C-I-M-A, DECIMA Research Group. Of those surveyed, 34% said, yes, I would be open to a conversation with my favorite charity about including them in my estate plans. 34%. That number really gets me jazzed. I know for every loyal donor, roughly, for every 10 loyal donors I call, 2 to 3 are probably going to be open to a conversation. And then, I always like to say it starts as a numbers game, so I just have to keep getting through the donors. But once I connect with somebody who has an interest, then it becomes a relationship arrangement where I'm trying to build that relationship. But it starts with the numbers game of realizing that 8 out of 10 people probably aren't going to be interested. But it's that 2 that we need to be pursuing and be excited about. The myth that people think that playing giving takes too much time. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. You just do a little bit each week, I have a client who's an independent school in Colorado, and she emailed me last week, and she said, boy, I'm so glad we worked with you, and the big thing that we got out of it was that we don't have to hire a full-time plain giving person. We don't have to give up our family life and work weekends to pursue this. If we just put a little bit of time in each week, if it's a half hour, 1 hour to focus on this a week, we get results. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I'm going to show you why it doesn't have to be complicated. And again, donors don't always want to write the checks, but if they have other options, if we have other options, they may very well be open to that. I did jump a little bit ahead with my Decima research, but one point to finish that thought was, of those 34% who said, yeah, I'm open to a conversation, sadly, only 17% said that they were ever asked, that the charity ever bothered to ask. And that's another really exciting thing to think about. Most of your donors are not getting asked from other charities, unless they're the big ones. The universities, the hospitals, they are fundraising machines. And I don't want to downplay the fact that they are talking to your donors about plain gifts. But medium, small level charities, for the most part, don't have these conversations. It's not like annual fund or major gifts, again, where these donors are constantly getting bombarded with these requests. And as I mentioned before, there's a stat, the numbers are all over the place. One of the numbers I heard is for every donor that you know has included you in their estate plans, there's 5 to 7 you don't know about. So, and that number really depends on your organization, how long you've been around, how long you've had an annual fund. There's a lot of variables, but just know that it's a pretty safe bet that if you've got an annual fund program and you haven't pursued plain gifts, you have donors out there that have already done something but never told you. I talked about the fact that the first plain gift does not have to be the last, and that donors will increase that commitment. The American Council of Gift Annuities, the organization nationally that manages, regulates charitable gift annuities, does research every year, and year after year, they show that 50%, half of the charitable gift annuities that are written each year are written by donors who already have at least one other gift annuity. So we probably all have heard stories of donors who love gift annuities who will get 2, 3, 4. I spoke to a donor recently who had 15 gift annuities from several charities. He had 2 or 3 with us and a dozen or so with other charities. They love them, the donors that need income. So without getting too off track, keep in mind that the first commitment should not be the last. So step 2, and this is a big one, know your role. It is not our place to offer tax advice or financial advice. Once somebody instilled that in me years ago, it was such a relief to realize not only we should know the basics, and I'm not downplaying the importance of knowing the basics. You can figure that out very easily. There's a ton of books out there that really would require a couple hours of reading just to give you the basics, the comfort level, to know what you know and know what you don't know. But once somebody said, and this guy was an estate attorney, he said, not only don't you need to have all the answers as far as tax advice and the latest news in Congress, but it's not your job to give donors advice. You can give them ideas, right, but not advice. And from time to time, a donor will say, well, I'm calling to get your advice on what I should do. And immediately I say, I'm here to give you ideas. And my job is to help you, if you don't already know, figure out what's the impact you want to have on our organization, on the people we serve, how you want your family, your heirs to benefit, and then to show you some ideas of ways that you can do that. It's really, we're giving people options, we're giving them ideas. And it really is all about them, right? There's this phrase it's overused, but I'm going to use it anyway. Why should I be different than everybody else? Donor-centric philanthropy, donor-centered fundraising. What does that really mean? Well, with donor-centric fundraising, we believe that it's really helping people get what they want first, right? What do you, Miss Donor, want to accomplish for yourself, for your family, and then the legacy, what you want to leave behind and the impact that you want to have on those we serve. So the old model of going to a donor and say, saying, hey, can you write us a check for $100,000 to repave the parking lot? That has its place, but true donor-centered fundraising and philanthropy is really, before we talk about what we need, tell me what you need, what's important to you, what are your goals around your philanthropy, and let's see if we can match those with our needs. It's really about asking great questions. We don't have to have all the answers. When I got into Plan Giving Consultant, I went back to my friend, my mentor, the estate attorney, and I said, Brian, I don't have all the answers, and I'm afraid people are going to ask me questions that I don't know the answers to. And I'm afraid the donor's going to ask me. And he said, I'm an estate attorney. I don't have all the answers. It's not always having all the answers. Look, we can get those answers. We can get them from, like I said, there's a ton of resources. Most people have attorneys on their board. There's plenty professionals in your community that can answer the really technical ones. But I think we're better off having better questions. My job is to ask really good questions. Questions that maybe they're not thinking about. Questions that I can pretty much guarantee their advisors are not talking about. I can't tell you how many high net worth donors I've heard that have said that they have all the best advisors that money can buy, but they're not having a conversation about what they really want, what their goals are, what their dreams are, what their concerns are. Maybe if the time is right and the donor is open to deeper conversation, we can be the ones to help them think about things that they're not thinking about. Why? One of my favorite questions. Why? Why are you so loyal? It's my favorite plan giving question, and I start every phone conversation with a donor with that is why? Tell me why you've been giving for so long. Why us? And that just opens up a whole opportunity to go to a deeper level. And I promise you, as a donor, most fundraisers are not asking Lorraine and I that question. So the next thing is to know your organization's why. Why are you in business? Why do you exist? And why should anybody care? Why should anyone want to invest in what you're doing? I mean, most people, most fundraisers, most executive directors, you know that. But it's important to not only know it, be able to articulate it in a concise, compelling way. And then what's your personal why? Why do you do this work? Why do you make the sacrifices that you do? People in the nonprofit sector do make sacrifices. I have many, many clients that could be making a lot more money in the for-profit world and are working incredibly long hours. And I look at them and said, man, it's obviously not just about the money. They're making sacrifices, and they have a strong why. So it's really knowing that why and being able to articulate that to donors in a sense that builds community, to say that you care about it, I care about it, we're committed together. Step 4, know the how. Most of these planned gift opportunities are simple bequests. What does that mean? It's people leaving your charity as a beneficiary in their will, in a trust. My favorite, qualified retirement plan. So 401k IRA. And what's really neat about this is, as we know, money goes into our retirement plans tax deferred. We're not paying taxes when the money goes in. But when we turn 70 and 1/2, well, guess what? Uncle Sam wants some of his take. He wants his money at that point. We can either give that to Uncle Sam or to our favorite charity. And I just was on a conversation with a donor last week who we got to talking for a while, and I looked at her giving. She was giving all these outright gifts, and I said, Helen, not her real name, do you have a retirement account? She said, yeah. I said, are you aware of the options of giving through your retirement account? She said, no. I said, well, first of all, you told me you're 80 years old. Are you making your required minimum distribution? Once you turn 7 1/2, you have to start taking the money out every year. And she said, yeah. I said, well, rather than write us a check, why don't you consider the donation through your required minimum distribution? Now, you'll want to talk to your advisors about that. I'm just here to present you ideas. But it could be a much more tax-efficient way for you to do that. And if you have been so generous to say that you want to provide for us upon your passing, you might talk to your advisor about making us a beneficiary in your retirement plan. Hopefully that was straightforward enough. But and there's, again, plenty of information out there on the internet. The qualified retirement plan is my favorite way to talk to donors who have one, how they can support us, and it doesn't, for the most part, take money out of their heirs. Life insurance, donor might have an extra policy sitting in their bureau drawer and they never look at it. They could make us a beneficiary very simply. Payment on debt. What are payment on debt accounts? Payment on debt accounts are bank accounts or investment accounts, mutual funds, or accounts at Morgan Stanley or Wells Fargo. And then donor advised funds. This is an area that's growing rapidly. My wife and I have one. They're very easy to get into. Your community foundations, many offer them. And the neat thing is that, so what I recommend is if talk to your finance department, your accounting department, have them keep an eye out when the checks come in. If any checks are coming in from a donor advised fund, contact your donor and let them know or have the conversation that have they made a beneficiary designated a beneficiary for their donor advised fund? Chances are they have. And did they know that they can make our organization a beneficiary of that donor advised fund? So it's something that a lot of fundraisers don't talk about, and it's something that a lot of people that have the fund don't think about. And then I always like to say, have an expert on speed dial. Again, you have somebody on your board who's an estate attorney, an accountant. It's not going to come up much at all. And again, it's our job just to give ideas. And there's nothing wrong with saying to a donor, you know what, that's a great question. If you don't have an advisor, let me talk to one of ours. I don't like giving out attorney names to donors specifically. I'll give a list, but I don't like to give just one. So I might say, here's a list of 5 estate attorneys in our community, so that we're not coming across as if we're obligated to that attorney, or if something happens, doesn't make us look bad. But just to give them that option. I do run into donors once in a while who have no one, especially the older ones, some of which I've had a couple recently that are dying and are getting their affairs in order, and they don't even have an executor. And so I had one in New York City, and I referred him to the New York Bar Association and said, I can't, this is as far as I can help you. Is most of these conversations are going to be very, very straightforward. Step 5 is start a legacy society, my society that we developed to recognize our donors who have included us in their plans. I like to use the term future plans. Estate plans, people hear estate, like, well, I'm not rich enough to have an estate, even though we all have an estate. So I like to say future plans. Now, a lot of donors don't want to join it. They don't care about it, but it's a great way to promote it. I have plenty of donors like, you know what, I don't need that. You're in the will, don't worry about it. So our task there is to keep building trust with them, keep cultivating them, stewarding them, in hopes that they'll eventually feel comfortable joining the society. And it's a way for us to recognize, and most importantly, to celebrate your gift now. Lorraine and I, and if any of you have already made a planned gift, when are we as planned giving donors benefiting from the planned gifts? Now, while we're alive, right? We're celebrating. Hopefully the charities are doing a good job of celebrating the gifts now and keeping us close to the mission and the impact while we're alive. So this is a great way, the society is a great way to do that, to recognize and keep people to celebrate their commitment now. I recommend that if you're going to come up with something clever. These are 2 that I've come up with recently. The first one is for an organization I sit on the board called Blossom, Philadelphia. We were formerly United Cerebral Palsy, so we empower people with different abilities. And so Bloom is the new brand. And I said, well, it sounds like a flower. How about perennial, that it comes year after year, it's sustaining. At my church, did some pro bono work, helped them set up a planned giving society. I just started Googling Bible, sustainability, and came up with Living Waters. So we named it the Living Waters Society. That's something that's going to go on in perpetuity. And you brand it, and you put it on everything, and you market it, and you go out and you start talking to people about this new society that you've formed, and you join it, like I said earlier. And you get your board to join it, which is, again, probably a webinar for another time, a whole separate webinar. Set a goal. I love doing this. Okay, we're going to start a society. So at our church, we set a goal to get 25 members to the Living Water Society in the first 3 years. It's a small church. And I just put it out there. And every time I speak at a service, I talk about it. I tell them the why this is important. I show them how easy making a planned gift commitment is. And then I have a call to action. Please join Lorraine and I as a founding member, charter member of the Living Water Society. We do have a goal to get to 25 members. Every time I do that, and I do it maybe once a quarter in a Sunday morning, I get one or two people come up to me or send me an email saying, I've done something, or, yeah, let's get together and talk. Just by putting it out there. So you set that goal and then invite people. As I said, just keep inviting people. All right, making that call. Pick up the phone. Like I said, you want to select loyal donors, people who have been connected, people who have been showing their loyalty through their giving at any level, not just the wealthy ones. Pick up that phone and say thank you. Talk to them about the impact of their giving, right? This is stuff that we do with annual and major gifts work, right? And if they indeed, as the conversation develops, you might talk about, hey, you know what, we have this society. And sometimes I'll say to a donor, this is the first time we've ever spoken, and the chances of me getting that donor back on the phone are pretty slim. So this might not be typical with what you all do. You might have a lot more opportunity to go out and meet people. I don't. I need to not close them on the first call, but qualify them pretty strongly on the first call. And I say strongly. I certainly do it in a professional, subtle way, but I need to qualify people pretty clearly on the first call. So I might just say, you know what, this is a question way out of left field. Has anybody here ever talked to you about other ways to support us? How would you feel about a conversation about other ways to support us beyond the incredible things that you're doing now? What do you mean? Well, there are these things called planned gifts. Many of them cost you nothing now. Some will provide you income. And for a lot of our donors, they've been shocked at how much more tax efficient these ways of giving, this way of giving, can be, right? So it's really, there are plenty of ways to just bring it up. And my other favorite approach is, should we? I was out to dinner with some friends and my wife, and the server came up and said, should I be asking you if you would like another round of drinks? And just the way he said it, it really hit me. It's like, wow, what a great question to ask our donors. We might be acknowledging, thanking somebody for their giving, and then maybe feel like, well, gee, I'm not sure if it's the right time to be asking about planned giving. Well, the only way to find out is to ask, should we, Mary, should we be having a conversation about other ways to support us? It's a great, simple question, and it really just, it allows us to do that in such a non-confrontational way. So we're having the conversation. These are the typical objections that we're going to get from people who want to do more. Again, right, we have to establish the fact they want to do something before we go down this road. I want to provide for my kids and grandkids. I'm giving all I can afford now. I'm on fixed income. Very, very common, probably the three most common objections. Well, when someone says they want to provide for the kids and grandkids, my go-to is the retirement plan. And if they have a retirement plan, again, I have that conversation. Well, did you know that there's a percentage of that you're going to have to pay tax on? It's not going to go to your heirs anyway. You might want to check with your advisor if it's a more efficient way to do that. I'm always saying check with your advisor. Just giving you ideas. I'm getting all I can afford to give now. Well, most of these planned gifts now, and you can change your mind. Here we have that endowed scholarship at St. Joe's. If something catastrophic happens with us, with my wife, if I predecease her and she needs some money, well, St. Joe's isn't getting it. And it's really important to let donors know that. It's okay. We understand that most of these gifts are what we call revocable. You could change your mind. Your circumstances might change. It's a really important point. And then, of course, I'm on fixed income. Well, we can respond to the donor by saying, well, did you know that there are some gifts that that will actually pay you income? You pay us and we pay you back, so to speak. And the gift annuities are certainly available through your community foundations and some other resources, depending on how large your program is. Step 7, steward, cultivate, repeat. As I've mentioned, don't ignore planned giving donors. I see it so often. When I start working with a client, I always start by, if you have planned giving donors, when was the last time you called? Verify that their plans are still intact. Let's start there, right? And don't ignore them. Just because they've said you're in our plans does not mean they're going to kick you out. I've kicked out a number of charities from our plans. They don't call and say, are we still in? I take them out and I don't bother calling back. So we need to keep building trust. Keep them involved in the mission. Ask them, what do you need to do to feel involved? Fundraisers are not asking me that. It's so frustrating. How do you want to be stewarded? What will make you feel really connected to the mission? What would you need to see? What would you need to hear? What would you need to experience? Ask the donors. Don't assume. And, of course, show them how they are making a difference all year long, not just one time a year in an annual report. My friends at an organization called the Veritas Group call it YMAD. It's an acronym, YMAD. You made a difference. So I suggest at least quarterly, if not more, you're sending out something to your donors just to say, here's how you made a difference. A postcard, an email. And my opinion is don't include an ask. But as a donor, I hate getting a thank you letter with an additional ask envelope in it. It just really drives me crazy. Once in a while, just tell me what you're doing, and you don't have to ask me for money every time. So know the facts. Lots of opportunity. Know your role. Your role is to ask questions, to try to connect, build trust, know the basics, just enough to give you that confidence to pick up the phone and to have that conversation. Know the why, your why. Always be asking the donor their why. Know the how, know those basics. Get that legacy society started. It costs you nothing. There's no reason not to have one. It costs you nothing to do it. Make those calls. Call those people that have been giving, the people that love you. Let them know you're starting this. Don't be worried about having all the answers. Steward them. Cultivate them. Keep doing it. Keep them involved.